Hey everybody, I'm Bill Tindo, and today I'm giving you the beatdown on Majora's Mask. So, Majora's Mask, Nintendo 64, direct sequel to Ocarina of Time, which is obviously the greatest Zelda game ever made. Not just for gameplay, but also for actual cultural impact. It made a really deep impact in society and the way people viewed 3D games, which were just starting to come about. So, Nintendo decided they wanted to do a sequel to that as it was so successful, but they didn't want to put in the long production time, and the production time for, some games can be 3 4 years. Zelda games are generally considered the one of the top games for any given Nintendo system. And since they didn't want to put in the production time, what they did was they took all of the code from Ocarina of Time and put it all into Majora's Mask. What they did was they reused assets. A lot of the characters are the same, except they have different names, different jobs, as they are now no longer in Hyrule, but in the world of Termina. It starts off by Link chasing his fairy Navi, who is extremely irritating in Ocarina, into the forest, his horse getting stolen, and he ends up in Termina, which is another world. A very interesting world, and I gotta say, you go from there and you meet the Skull Kid very early on. He sticks the Deku mask on you, and you're stuck as a Deku scrub for a little while, which is a little irritating at first. But once you get used to the gameplay and how it works, it's not so bad. And you do revisit that form hundreds and hundreds of times throughout the game to accomplish certain goals, which I'll get into shortly. So you get in the clock town, and eventually you meet the mask salesman. You go through a series of challenges, and you get to remove the Deku mask. And what they did was, in Ocarina of Time, there was a side quest involving mask. And this game, they actually took and made the game about the mask. There's 4 temple bosses. You collect their mask. There are 4 transformation masks, and there are 20 other masks. Some don't really do much of anything. Some are super helpful throughout the whole game, like the bunny hood. At a certain point, you know, I did not want to get rid of the bunny hood because, near the end, you can get the final mask if you have collected every mask along the way. Near the end, you will have to give away all of your masks, which they do give them back, but and in return, they give you the fierce deity mask. Um, and the last mask I gave away was the bunny hood because it makes you run faster and jump further, and it was probably what I used most throughout the entire game. Um, as far as Zelda games go, generally they're defined by their dungeons and the bosses. And I was very turned off about this game originally when it came out for many years over a myriad of reasons, and one of them being that they only had 4 temples and it was a 3-day cycle. So the 3-day cycle is what really turned me off, and I was like, I'm not gonna play that. I love Zelda, but a big thing for me is exploration, and you can't do that with a 3-day cycle. But you end up rewinding time so many times that there's so much exploration, just as much as Ocarina, just as much as any other Zelda game. This one tends to feel a little more linear, but not completely because there's so many side quests for you to accomplish. I'm actually quite amazed at the amount of content that they stuffed into this game. Um, and so there's only 4 temples, which is one of the things that kind of threw me off. But that being said, you go through those temples multiple times as you rewind time to accomplish certain goals, to do certain things, and you actually go through those temples over and over again. So you don't really need a dozen temples if you have 4 temples that you have to go through 3 times each to accomplish everything inside of them. The bosses were fair. Not my favorite bosses out of all Zelda games, but they were good, solid fights. I had a major problem with one of the mini bosses more than anything else in the game. Um, the game requires a lot of transformation with the transformation mask. You're a Zora, you're a Goron, you're a Deku Scrub, and you're a Hylian Link. The Zora obviously you use for water. The Goron you use for rolling and stuff like that, which, by the way, super, super frustrating on the final. Uh, it's kind of like a sub temple, a mini dungeon, if you will, on the moon for each of the four temples. And there's a challenge in each one, and you can get an extra heart piece, and that's also in the path of getting the fierce deity mask. So the Goron one I was not real happy with, just because it required a level of precision with the Goron roll that had not been really used that precisely throughout the game for extended periods. But other than that, it's still cool. You get to be a different character. So it's it lends more towards the RPG side instead of the action side, which Zelda games have definitely leaned more towards the action adventure and less towards the RPG in the past. But this one, with all the mask and everything, it's almost like having multiple characters, and it leans a little bit more towards the RPG. Now, when you complete these mini dungeons, you complete your four temples, you go to the moon, because everybody knows that the main goal of this game is to keep the moon from crashing, and you have 3 days to do that. And on the evening of the third day, you do go to the moon finally, and they have four mini dungeons. Each specific one's a Deku, one's a Zora, one's a Goron, and one is for Link. And if you complete all these dungeons, you get heart pieces and you get the Fierce Deity Mask. Now, the Fierce Deity Mask is amazing and garbage at the same time. And the reason I say that is I very much enjoyed the look and the feel of playing with the Fierce Deity Mask on the final boss. But if you do get it, you need to realize that you're going to do the final boss battle in under 2 minutes. And left me feeling a little unsatisfied. I will go back and fight Majora again, minus the Fierce Deity Mask, just because I want to do it the harder way. It was a little bit of an unsatisfying feeling. I went in there to the final dungeon, final boss room, 2 minutes, it was over, roll credits. I honestly should have used the Fierce Deity Mask my second playthrough, and not my first. And by the way, the Fierce Deity Mask is only available in the final boss battle. You can't use it anywhere else in the game. Thank goodness, because it is so overpowered, it's ridiculous. Now, that being said, I did get it because I like to complete things, and I'm iffy on admitting this, but I did not 100% this game. I actually 98%ed it, because there are a couple segments in Legend of Zelda that I love, and there are a couple segments that I don't really care for. One that I don't really care for is shooting mini games, when you have to bow and arrow moving targets, like you would at the fair. Don't like those. So when I finished this game, I was minus 4 containers, 4 heart pieces to equal 1 container. I had 19 hearts total. And they were all shooting mini games, and I just don't find that much enjoyment in those, so I didn't do them. I will go back and do them just to say, hey, I 100%ed this game. And the other 2 items I didn't get was I was minus 2 bottles. And the reason being is it's Legend of Zelda. You use bottles for potions and fairies. This game has an enormous amount of bottles. It has 6 available bottles. If you need 6 bottles in Legend of Zelda, you're absolute garbage. Like, really? You need 6? You need 1 green potion. You need 3 fairies just in case. 4 bottles. That's it. One of the bottles was pain in the butt to get, I guess, because it's on the Couples Mask side quest, which is extremely long, and you have to do a lot of accurate timing. And right before the end of the side quest, you get to make a decision. Now, do you want to get the postman's hat, or do you want to get this final bottle? Obviously, I chose the postman's hat as it's one of the masks, and I was definitely going to complete all of the mask because I really wanted to see what this fierce deity mask was all about. So I didn't go back and get that bottle yet. I'll go back and get it. The final bottle, I actually really don't want to get, but I will just because I'm going to finish the last 2% of this game, and it is a underwater swimming race with some beavers, and when you win, you get the 6th bottle or the 5th bottle, depending on the order you got them in. The underwater swimming mechanic is okay. I don't hate it. It's better than Mario 64's underwater swimming mechanic by leaps and bounds. Just not my favorite mechanic of the game. I like doing other things. You know, I put it above shooting mini games, but you know, I just wasn't that interested in it. But I will go back and get it because I enjoy 100%ing games, especially Legend of Zelda games. This game actually made me change my mind about a few things, and one of them is I didn't want to play a one-off of Ocarina of Time because it was so good, but I was wrong about that. This game has changed my mind about that, and it made me kind of open up my eyes a little bit. I also didn't play Wind Waker when it came out. I thought it looked childish. I thought it looked cartoony, and I'm like, this is for little kids, not really for the big grown-up Zelda fans. But Majora's Mask changed my mind on that. Like, maybe a Legend of Zelda game that's outside of what I would normally expect could be good, because this game I felt was really excellent. And so I started Wind Waker. 20 years later, I started Wind Waker. And, you know, I'm just a little ways into it. And I knocked out a couple dungeons, and I'm very much enjoying it. The play style is different. It's a very interesting game. And I have Majora's Mask to thank for letting me open up my mind to an out-of-the-box Zelda game. Overall, I would have to give Majora's Mask, I'm going to say an 8.5, and that's ranking Ocarina as a 9.5. This is just below that. It has a couple little issues that I don't think are the greatest in the world. Obviously, there was an overabundance of shooting mini games, which some people that might be like their favorite thing ever. I also didn't like that the consumables are all lost whenever you rewind time. I would put it on the same level as Twilight Princess. For me, it's Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, even heat with Majora's Mask, and, you know, other Zelda games listed after that. But that's my top 3. So I'm going to say Majora's Mask, definitely an 8.5. Check it out. You're going to love this game. Peace, y'all.